By the end of this speech, an average of 20 people will embrace the good news that my church, the Seventh-day Adventist Church, proclaims, joining the church through baptism or profession of faith. To be specific, that's 1.9992 people, or nearly 2 people every minute. That adds up to well over 1 million people annually. So how does a worldwide church of more than 17 million members who hail from nearly every country and culture in the world stay united and focused on its mission? Well, people are energized by the message we proclaim. Many do not understand the organizational structure that underlies such explosive growth. According to the official church website, Adventist.org, the mission of the Seventh-day Adventist Church is to make disciples of all people, communicating the everlasting gospel in the context of the 3 angels' messages of Revelation 14, 6 through 12, leading them to accept Jesus as personal Savior and unite with his remnant church, discipling them to serve him as Lord and preparing them for his soon return. Those 3 angels' messages of Revelation 14 that are mentioned are to go to every tribe, tongue, and people. Now, of course, anyone can make up a nice mission statement, but it's also important to back up that statement with action. Today, I will explain how the organizational structure of the Seventh-day Adventist Church works, supporting the mission of this church. First, I'll share some vital statistics about the worldwide church. Then I'll explain the basic organizational structure, and finally, I'll explain the funding structure. You will see that because of this mission-driven structure, every member's participation has the potential to influence the mission worldwide. Now, unless otherwise mentioned, the statistics I will be citing come from the most recent statistics found on Adventist.org, which are dated December 31st, 2010, with a few updates on June 30, 2011. The Seventh-day Adventist Church is made up of 17,214,683 members. In 2003, the Israeli field office posted on their website that worldwide, more than 20 million people enjoy fellowship with us each week. We have an established work in 209 of the 232 nations recognized by the United Nations. And we also have an unofficial work, or a beginning work, in many, if not all, of the rest of these countries. Much of that is underground for obvious reasons. Believing in reaching the whole person, Adventist believers have united to form and support the world's second largest private educational system, with 7,806 schools, including 111 tertiary institutions. We also have the second largest private medical and hospital system in the world, with 567 medical facilities, including 173 hospitals. In both cases, we take second place to the Roman Catholic Church, which had about a 1,500-year head start. Other Adventist entities include food industries, media, publishing, relief agencies, the largest of those being the Adventist Development and Relief Agency, or ADRA. On March 17, 2011, USA Today published an article entitled "Adventist Back to Basics Faith is Fastest Growing U.S. Church." In this article, they stated that the Seventh-day Adventist Church is the fastest growing denomination in the United States, posting a 2.5% growth rate, while most other denominations are in decline. The next fastest growing church is the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, with a growth rate of 1.4%. The article goes on to correctly state that this information actually is a surprise to many North American Adventists, because our growth rate in North America is dismal compared to the rest of the world. So how does that growth happen? Well, a lot of it has to do with a structure that is designed for success. We see Christ as the head of our church, and the Bible as the ultimate authority. But an earthly organization is also necessary. Seventh-day Adventists also believe that the priesthood of all believers is an important concept, and therefore the organization is a bottom-up organization. Individual members are the earthly basis of the denomination. The 17 million members of the Seventh-day Adventist Church join together to form congregations or churches. There are 136,601 such congregations worldwide. That information is as of June 30, 2011. And then these congregations join together in a sisterhood of churches called a conference. In some regions, it's called a mission. These conferences tend to follow geographic boundaries. For instance, in the United States, conferences usually follow state boundaries. The conference's job is to hire the pastors and teachers for the local churches and schools. They also coordinate the work within the territory, and they provide legal, accounting, training, and other resources that would be very difficult for a small congregation to achieve on their own. There are 585 such conferences and missions around the world. And then the conferences join together in larger regional units to make union conferences. This administrative unit is intended to keep the church organization decentralized and avoid an overpowerful general conference. There are 119 such unions. And then, of course, those unions join together to form the General Conference, which oversees the unity and the work around the globe. The General Conference is actually divided into 13 administrative divisions as well. Now, throughout this structure, lay members are involved in decision-making and electing officials. Even at the General Conference session, which meets every 5 years, you will find lay people as delegates with full voting rights on the floor. This may seem like a lot of statistics, but at the center of it all are people, church members like me, joyfully impacting those around us and our church with the passion that the Lord has placed on our hearts. Now, of course, any institution is going to need funding. And so let's take a look here at the funding structure that underlies this institution. This is another highly unique part of the organizational structure of the Seventh-day Adventist Church. In his article in the Southwestern Union Record, The Miracle of Tithes and Offerings, Harvey Byram states, U.S. government statistics show that 97% of all money collected by Protestant churches remains in the local church, and only 3% is actually reaching out to help people. Now, in contrast, the Adventist Church intentionally has designed its funding structure to distribute finances throughout this worldwide work. Now, the most basic giving unit is the tithe. Church members are encouraged to give 10% of their income. In the Old Testament, the tithe went to support the Levites, whose life was dedicated to full-time religious service. In the New Testament, 1 Corinthians 9, verse 14, says, in the same way, the Lord commanded that those who proclaim the gospel should get their living by the gospel. Let's say that this $5 bill is my tithe. If we break down this $5 bill, we'll see how the money is appropriated. Based on the principle that we already mentioned, none of the local tithe money goes directly to the local church. Instead, it is sent to the conference, which uses it to support people who live of the ministry. 75% of the tithe goes to fund in the local conference, goes to fund salaries and other support costs of those who proclaim the gospel, such as pastors, teachers, and administrators. So 75% stays in the local conference. Since the local conference, rather than the local church, supports the pastor, there is a general pay scale which applies to all full-time pastors and teachers. So the pastor in a small district of, say, 60 members in rural Texas is on the same pay scale as one pastoring a 3,000-member church. This enables us to support the work in areas that would otherwise be unable to support a pastor. Another 9% of the tithe goes to the union, which of course pays the salaries and maintenance up there, but is primarily appropriated for evangelism and other support ministries such as women's ministries, health ministries, and ethnic outreaches. And then finally, the last portion, the 16%, goes to the General Conference. And of course, it covers the staff there, and it also goes to help overseas projects and missionary expenses. The thing that I think is really neat about this funding structure is that every time someone places any amount of tithe into the offering plate, they can know that a part of their gift could go anywhere in the world to support missions. Church members are also encouraged to give free will love offerings to other funds, such as the local church budget, which helps to support the operations of the local church. All of this shows that the success of the worldwide Seventh-day Adventist Church is due in part to a very well-planned organizational and funding structure that supports the mission statement of the church. And this ensures that every member's participation has a global impact.